Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the CBSI Hot 10 show. Make sure you go over to comicbookinvest.com and check out the article where I may put a few extra details and tidbits that I don't cover here on the show tonight. And while you're over there, check out all the articles and check out all the shows we have here on the channel. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's rundown, don't worry, I got you covered. We'll be starting it up right after this short little break.
Notable sales.
All right, our first notable sale of the week is The Hedge Knight. Personally, I can't wait for this series to show up on HBO Max. I've been looking forward to it ever since they announced it because this little novella, I guess it is, it's kind of like 3 shorter stories kind of combined into one for The Hedge Knight, is one of the best stuff. Is some of the best stuff from the Game of Thrones universe, in my opinion. I really enjoy the stories here, so I'm looking forward to them adapting it for the small screen. But this particular issue is a convention special from 2003, and this CGC 9.8 sold this week for basically what would be an all-time high, but I think it's also the only 9.8 copy I saw actually graded, so it's obviously going to be an all-time high. But it sold for about $700 this week. I think it was the best offer on a $1,000 ask, but 1,500 copies. You don't see it all that often. And as we get closer and closer to release, we might see more of these Hedge Knight books and more of these Game of Thrones type comics start selling again. I just thought this was an interesting sale because, like I said, I hadn't seen a 9.8 sell ever before now. So that's a big price and an interesting book. With that, another book that I was surprised to see sell this week, and one that doesn't come up all that often, is this 1 in 10 Disney Hero Squad, the Ultra Heroes. So this is a Boom Kids book from, 2010? So a little bit back in the day. This thing is technically, I believe, a 1 in 10 incentive. They call it a limited edition in a lot of places, but I believe it was a 1 in 10 incentive. It is a thicker stock, prestige kind of format type of book. It is a little bit, more pages in there. Obviously doing the Action Comics, homage there on the front with Goofy. I actually do have one of these because I love hunting these 1 in 10s, and I remember once I found out that this existed, I had to find one. But this particular book, maybe I need to get it graded because this 9.4 sold, and there's only 5 graded total copies. 4 of them are 9.8s, and there's one 9.4, and this 9.4 sold this week for $800. And that's a pretty decent sale when you consider the 9.8 sold in February for a little over $1,500. So any grade is probably worth owning. And before these 2 sales, you got to go back all the way to 2022 to find any more sales of this book, graded or otherwise. It's something that just doesn't come up all that often, but it's a fun book. Like I said, I like it. I got one buried around here somewhere, and maybe I should go get it graded if you can get $800 for a 9.4, because it's prestige format, it's square bound, it holds its condition pretty well, as long as you don't have any major damage to it. Now, with that said, those are our notable sales of the week. And before we get to the top 10, let me remind you that any of you out there who need to get supplies, you can get 10% off your entire order by using my code RENA10. You can use the link down below, but definitely use the code RENA10 to save 10% off your entire BCW order. That's where I get all my bags, my boards, short boxes, long boxes, CGC boxes, top loaders, pages for cards, anything you need to keep your comics and collectibles safe. They pretty much got you covered, and you can save 10% off by using that code RENA10. So, it sucks to have to buy those supplies sometimes, but if you got to do it, you might as well save money while you do it. So with that all said, let's get right into the actual list and start us off with our first book here with number 10.
Number 10.
All right, coming back from last week's list, dropping a spot, we have that Mark Spears 1 in 25 for Green Lantern number 21. Now, overall, once again, I mentioned last week was a kind of a slow week on the market. This week arguably felt very similar in a lot of cases, though there were a couple of standout books, which we will get to further down the list. So here we have a book hanging on at the tail end that we had on last week, and this is that 1 in 25 Mark Spears Green Lantern book. Why did it hang on to the list? Well, it basically more than doubled its volume of sales, which is why it still is notable considering a bunch of new incentive variants came out this week, and most of them sold only like a couple of copies. So none of them really warranted consideration for me on the list. So I thought this one, with 112% increase from last week with about 20 sales, Still averaging about 45 bucks, which is a slight increase over the $42 average of last week, and the high is still right around 60 bucks. This hangs on to that last spot on the list. So, not very high on the list, but enough here with that extra volume, basically doubling from last week, earning that spot here at number 10. So, that's going to start us off and kind of set the stage for what we have here, because we do have a bunch of arguably smaller books and books you can still probably go out there and dig and find on the list. So we're not going to belabor the point. I'm not going to tease it any longer. Let's keep it going and get right to it with our next one.
Number 9.
And one of those books you may be able to find out there is Far Sector number 1. There are a couple of covers. I believe there's an A, a B, and a C, and a second print for this issue. But we're just talking about the cover A for now. This is Far Sector 1, the Jamal Campbell cover. Reason why is because this Green Lantern, the Sojourner, I can't really pronounce things right, but she's kind of headlining the Absolute Green Lantern book. They're kind of flipping things on its head. If you checked out that Green Lantern book this week, it basically looks like Hal might be the bad guy in this universe, and a lot of the other Green Lanterns might be secondary characters, like Guy might be the town sheriff, because we haven't seen him yet. Dr. John Stewart. Interesting to see how they're building that little world out and keeping everything kind of self-contained, but she looks like to be the lead of this. So with that, folks are going back and picking up her first appearance here at a rate of 300% increase from last week. Granted, there's only like a dozen sales, but there was only a couple sales last week. So a rush of sales when you consider that fact. And the high of 16 bucks isn't all that impressive, but this was once again one of those books that kind of fell back down into a $5, $10 kind of range once again. So its price is starting to go on the increase here. CGC 9.8s are still about 60 bucks. This book had hit the cycle before, so we've seen it on the speculation run before, and it's on that up and down trajectory. Right now, it seems to be on that upward swing once again. Will that hold? I don't know, but we'll see. Point being, it's got a spot here, still near the bottom of the list at number 9, but still one to keep an eye on in those weeks ahead, as we don't know where Absolute Green Lantern is going to take us for sure. Now, with that, let's keep it rolling and get on to our next book.
Number 8.
So this week, Spider-Man 4, they announced the subtitle heading is no longer home-related. So it's not homecoming. We're not far from home. We're not halfway home. We're not no way home. We are going with a brand new day. And that has got a lot of people going back for these brand new day books, even though the storyline contained in here really may not be attached to it. It's basically just the subtitle of the movie. Yes, we may hit some of these topics. Maybe we see Feast introduced and maybe Mr. Negative in the movie. I don't know. We don't know much about the movie apart from it will be subtitled Brand New Day. But this leads people back to grabbing books like this one, the Free Comic Book Day Amazing Spider-Man book, which is kind of sought out by those collectors of those Mr. Negative jackpot sort of arguments of first appearances, etc. Those go back to this Free Comic Book Day of 2007. Book you can find out there if you go digging. I mean, it's come up before once or twice. It's kind of popped here or there. Right now, we had about 20 sales this week, averaging about 14 bucks, hitting a high of 35. CGC 9.8 even sold for 130 for one of these. So Free Comic Book Day books can sell. So don't throw them away when you grab them, because you never know what might pop up down the line. Now, with that said, we're going to keep the list rolling and get on to our lucky number 7.
Number 7.
We're going to switch on over to the DC side of things, as an actress has announced that she's going to be playing White Rabbit in Peacemaker Season 2. Now, who knows how big the role is going to be in this series? Maybe it's just a one-off Easter egg appearance. We don't know. But point being, this announcement's caused people to go and dig for this book, which is another one you can find out for cheap if you go digging. Plenty of $3 to $5 type sales here on Batman the Dark Knight #1, New 52 book. You know, man, New 52. There's plenty of these out there if you want to go digging for them. But this David Finch cover inside is the first appearance of that White Rabbit character. And we had a couple dozen sales here, averaging about, well, actually, I shouldn't say average, because the average sale is really in that kind of $5 to like $7 kind of range, because we do have some outliers, highs of like 10 bucks, but a lot of those cheaper sales in the $3 to $5 kind of range. But if you can find a newsstand, that could sell for like 25 bucks. So always with these early 2000s, even mid 2000s type books, you look for the newsstand, because you're going to get a premium on that. So this is this is same deal here. So, It's going to be a newsstand is going to get you more than that direct. So with that, keep an eye on this one. Yes, issue 3 does feature the White Rabbit on the cover, and actually does sell for a tiny bit more than this issue, even though this is her first. Just keep that in mind when you're out there hunting and out there digging. But this is our number 7 book. And like I said, what's a little bit of a slower week, but we do have some books coming on the way. So here we go with our next one at number 6.
Number 6.
All right, so here we have a book that's purely based off of speculation and rumors. Yes, some talk has been going around that Robert Downey Jr.'s character, his Doctor Doom character, may be a relative of Reed Richards in some way. One of those ideas being floated around out there is that he could be Nathaniel Richards, who is Reed Richards' father, in an alternate universe where he does some time traveling, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, alternate universe typey stuff. Could that be the case here? Well, we are dealing with the multiverse after all. It's possible. So for those banking on this being the case for our RDJ Doctor Doom, they're looking at this issue of Fantastic Four 272, which is a cameo appearance of Nathaniel Richards. This goes back a ways. This is a John Byrne issue, writing and doing the art. 272. This is up about, 112%. Yeah. So we got about 20 sales on this one, up about 112%. This is over last week because this is a rumor that's been floating around a week or two. So we've seen this book start to sell a little bit. Still not that expensive. I mean, raw highs are still only $11 even right now. But something to keep an eye on as those volumes and copies start to move, as people are buying into the rumor, because that's all it is for right now. It's rumor, it's speculation. We don't know anything yet for certain. But a 9.8 can sell for $100 if you have one. So keep that in mind as well. That's the bottom half of the list. So let's see what we have in the top half, starting with our next book at number 5.
Number 5.
All right, we have another repeat on the list, and this is the only other one we have on the list for this week. And this is that Invincible number 62nd print. I made the point last week that even with only a half dozen sales and the high sale prices, it earned its spot. And then what does it do this week but basically replicate what it did last week, but with a couple of more sales? So what could I do? I had to, even dropping a spot, it still earned a spot here on the list because these prices are still ridiculously high for this second print. And we're talking about, it's over half a dozen sales. Basically, we're up about 33% from last week, averaging $625 these days. Where just not that long ago, this was only like a $300 book. Now, with some of these high sales, like this raw of $1,200, it's pulling that average up closer to 600 plus. This book is expensive, and it's actually selling at these prices, which is more impressive to me, and selling more copies than I would have thought. Who knows how many more copies are out there in the woodwork? Maybe they start coming to market next week. I don't know. Or maybe this is it. Time will tell. But for now, with more sales than we had the week before, price is still very, very high. This one earned its spot here, hanging on the list at number 5, even though it did drop one spot. But with that said, let's see what took its spot at number 4.
Number 4.
And the book that took its spot at number 4 is another surprise to me in that this book is sneaky high expensive. Granted, it's been this way for a while now. I wasn't really aware that this was a $100 book in a lot of cases, but apparently people like their beefcake covers, and that's what we got here. So Robin's number 2. This is just a B cover. This is not an incentive. This is just the variant cover for Robin's issue 2. And this cover by Nick Robles has been selling for a little while now. But this week, we've actually seen volume in the sense that, well, actually the last 2 weeks, if we want to total them up, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen over a dozen sales. And I know what you're thinking. A dozen sales doesn't seem like much, but we're talking about a B cover. Again, an open order B cover that sold over a dozen copies, averaging over $100. Over $100 average, hitting highs of $150. And I say highs because there were multiple $150-ish sales. I think there was like 2 at $150. There was like one at like $145. This book, it's expensive. It's expensive if you can find one. And yes, there's a dozen sales the last 2 weeks. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you consider outside of these sold the last 2 weeks, all of March only had 2 other sales. So consider that as well. Not a lot of copies coming to market, hence the price. We'll see where this one goes. But with these prices, I couldn't ignore it. I had to find it a spot on the list, and here it is at number 4. Now, with that, that still leaves us with our top 3. So let's take a look and see what they are.
Number 3.
So speaking of 3s, here's a book I had on the outside looking in a while back because I've been waiting for this one to come back around again. This is, again, one of those books. I've been on the cycle before. We've talked about it before. This is New Avengers issue 33. Gorgeous Delato cover. We start getting into those arguments of when does Doom become Emperor Doom? Is it because he has a white outfit, or when he gets the powers, when he's controlling Battleworld, etc.? Point being, this book is kind of the start of the incursions and everything that will lead into Secret Wars. So this is kind of an unofficial start as Secret Wars time runs out. So we're getting there. Like, this is really kind of kicking off the huge event that will be partially adapted, by the Russos in the next couple of Avengers movies. But New Avengers 33, just this past week, couple dozen sales here, up 320% from last week, averaging about $20. Highs hitting $34. Once again, this book has been here before. It's hit these numbers before, but it's this Russian volume going from one week to the next. It's finally starting to hit with this book. People are starting to look for it once again. So there we have our number 3 book of the week. Keep an eye out for this. It's still a good book. It's still a good read and a really cool cover if you like Delato, who I do. And I don't know. Plus, it's Doom. Can't go wrong with Doom. Now, with that said, we still got 2 books left, so let's take a look and see what's next.
Number 2.
All right, we had the free comic book day book. Now we have the in continuity issue 546, first issue for Brand New Day. It starts here. This book, once again, has been here before. Steve McNiven cover. Issue 546 this week with the announcement of that title for the next Spider-Man movie. We've seen a rush of sales once again with over 140 sales, over 140 this past week, averaging $20, hitting a high of 39. There was a newsstand of this book that sold for $140. Yes, keep an eye out for those newsstands. But as I mentioned, it was generally a slow week, apart from a couple of outliers, this being one of them. A lot of people buying this book. And yes, there were plenty of cheaper sales that have been there before. You got more closer to the $5 to $10 mark, but then they were pulled up by those other $39 highs to get us that $20 average. So depending on condition, depending on where you find it, you might be able to get this book at a discount. Or if you need one, you might have to pay a premium right now because folks are picking this up a lot with 140 sales. So this, even with that volume, is still at number 2, which leaves us with one more book to talk about. And if you haven't read the issue this week, I apologize. We're going to spoil some things, but you had a couple of days. And here we go with our next book.
And our number 1.
Okay, don't blame me for spoiling all new Venom number 5, but Marvel did it themselves. Yes, there was a spoiler cover. There was also a 1 in 100 spoiler cover. And then there was this secret release that came out early that many retailers had in hand. And this picture dropped a couple of days before Wednesday. So we've seen this early. Storyline was kind of already spoiled by this cover, this surprise retailer edition. Basically, it's like a 1 per account or a 1 per store, depending on how you want to go with it. I mean, some shops do have multiple accounts. They might have a Diamond account and a Penguin Random House. If they do, they might have gotten 2 copies. But it's technically roundabout a 1 per store thank you edition kind of thing. It's a surprise release, polybag, like Marvel did the last couple of years now. Yes, as you can tell on the cover, the mystery is solved over who the new Venom is, and it is Mary Jane. Love it or hate it, it's what we got. So this is the cover by Clayton Crane. This thing started selling right out of the gate, even before Wednesday hit, because as I mentioned, retailers got their books early. Picture kind of got released. Copies started to pre-sell pretty quickly. Now, these type of books, these surprise variants, they've gone anywhere from $20 to $30 when they start that first week to getting those high jumps like that Wolverine 37 did back in the day. And this book is kind of following the Wolverine pattern in that we've had 140 plus sales, very similar to the Brand New Day book we just talked about at number 2, but averaging $45 already. So it's already averaging $45 to $50 per copy, with highs already hitting 95 here and there. Yes, there was a random, copy that might have sold for only 15 or 20, but not many. By and large, most of these 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, all over the gamut, but the average as a whole is $45. And that's a lot of copies sold to solidify that average right now. So keep that in mind. Retailers didn't hang on to these. I don't know if you're still going to be able to find one at your shop. If you got a good relationship with your LCS owner, maybe you can get it for a good price. I don't know. But otherwise, you'll be stuck having to go chase these prices on the market, which I'm not advising anybody to do. I'm just saying that's what it is right now. And that's our number one book of the week. Hopefully you enjoyed this list. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. But before you go anywhere, make sure you stick around for the boys starting up with the qualified next. They're going to be doing a bit of a spotlight on the artist Kyung Yeom, if I'm saying that even close to properly. Plus, I got the outside looking in, covering some books that didn't quite make the Hot 10 list, and some books that you should be keeping an eye on, as well as a few other segments that they do every week. So stick around for the qualified starting up right after this is done here, and come back tomorrow for Saturday Night Special, Star Wars on Sunday. Then come Monday, you'll see my look ahead to next Wednesday's books on the Wednesday watch list. And with that all said, I'll see you all later with some more content. All right, later.